What we're going to do, since we have the basics down packed, this will be a lot smoother now that you kind of know how to work with Swift, add images, add things, add modifiers. We can come in and we can start to create an app. And what I'm doing, I'm basing this off of the Apple documentation, the developer. And this is pretty much how everyone has learned Swift UI is by doing these tutorials here. And we're going to build the essentials, and this is sort of a landmark app that has some really cool functionality, and it's a great way to learn Swift. So go ahead and check this out. We're not going to do all of these, but this is great if you want to get more into Swift UI. Then go ahead and do that. Like, it has drawing and animation and all this cool stuff. So if this is something that you're really interested in, I do suggest that you check this out and read the documentation, and this will give you a greater understanding of Swift. So what I want to do is, and you can go in, I'll click here. You can go in, once you click, we're going to start with creating and combining views. And if you want, you can go ahead and download the project files. It has the completed file, but it also has some of the assets that are used in this. So I'm going to open up Xcode and let's just start a new project. And we're going to get a single view app. And I'm just going to call this landmarks. Okay. And then language Swift, Swift UI. All right. And then let's just hit next. And then just save it wherever you would like to save there. Okay. Now, we are now ready to go in and start to play with this. So let me go in and clean this up. I'm going to get rid of the attributes over here. And this is all that we're going to go in and play with right here. So the first thing I want to do is we want to start adding some content to our sheet here. Now, you should understand the basics. So the first thing I'm going to do, let's just go in and change this text. We're going to call this turtle rock. Okay. And if you remember, we can add a modifier. If I hit resume, we should be able to see that that text has changed. All right. So remember, we can add modifiers, and one was a font modifier. So if I do dot font, and if I do a period here, you have a couple of different things. So we can have large titles, sub headlines, title. And the one that I'm going to choose is just title. And you can see that that text has gotten bigger. And I do hope that you understand the basics by now. We did kind of cover this stuff earlier, so hopefully you do have an understanding of this. And then let's change the color of our text. And if you remember, to change the text color, we use foreground color. So I'll say dot foreground color, and I'll just say dot green. I'm not really concerned with adding red, green, blue. We did cover that. So if you want to go in and change that to a RGB value, you can choose this here. And we can see that now our color is green here. All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to add something on top of this or below it. And remember, the way that we do that is by creating a VStack. You have to do it. If I try to add, let's say I try to add another set of text here, you do sometimes get an error here. So if I go in and say hello, it's failing here because it needs to be stacked. It's a vertical actual stack. So you can do this a couple of ways. So if I go in and hit plus, and I just go in and say title, but I don't really want to do it that way. I would rather just go ahead and embed this in a VStack. So if you click command on the text, and there's multiple ways of doing this, we kind of covered those. If I hit command and I click, we can embed this in a actual VStack. So if I click embed in VStack, now I have all of this in a VStack. So if I go under here and I go in and create another text, and I'm going to call this Joshua Joshua Tree National Park. All right. So now we don't have any errors in our code. So just know if you're kind of coding this manually, you have to go in and add that VStack in there. And usually when you add something from the attributes over here, so if I go in and say, you know, if I wanted to add a button or whatever, it will automatically create that VStack for you. But in my case, I'm fine. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to have text here, and then I want text right beside it. So what I can do, let's say for instance, I want this text to be in an HStack. So if I click, I can say embed in HStack. So now anything that I add under this, let's say I add another text property, and we'll just call this California. There it is. It's actually embedded in an HStack. And if you want to go in and add a modifier to it, go ahead. So I'll say .font. And if you hit the period right in there, you can go in and find this. So I'll just call this sub headline. So that's, you'll see how that shrinks it. And I'm just going to copy and paste the same thing. So this should be review. That's why I created those videos at first. So now you have an understanding of what's actually going on here. And now we have our HStack. And if you want some spacing between Joshua Tree National Park and California, you can go in and add a spacer in between the two. So I could say spacer and put my parentheses, and now they are spaced apart. And I also want to add a little bit of padding, and I want to add padding right here. So I'm gonna say dot padding, and you can see now I have a little bit of padding in there. And you have to play around with, when you're starting out, you have to play around with where you want it to actually be. But now we have padding sort of in that spot here. Okay, so the other thing is I want Turtle Rock to be aligned. So let's just say you can actually align your whole VStack, and we did this earlier. If you come into your VStack and you add those parentheses there, you can now say alignment. And what I want this to be is I want it to be leading. So now it's right here on the edge. All right, if you want it over here, it would be trailing. But now we've got this sort of set up, and I'm pretty happy with it. So all this should be reviewed and should have a good understanding of what we actually did. We're just kind of creating a whole kind of app at this point.